Part 76. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 751. Chapter 751, Knocked Out with a Stick. Mu Niankai listened to Xia Ying's words and said nothing during the whole process. She felt that her mind was very confused now, and she was not in the mood to think about these things, so she kept silent, listening to Xia Ying's words without answering. Xia Ying saw that Mu Niankai was not in the mood to listen, so she stopped talking. She just feels sorry for Mu Niankai. If she wakes up and realizes that Hanzija is good, but Hanzija has already let go by then she really won't have time to cry. On this day, Rong Ci was just preparing to pack his things and go to the United States to meet Jun Chenai, but while he was still concentrating on folding clothes, he suddenly felt something moving behind him. With the acumen of an agent, Rong Ci immediately became vigilant. Although he did not look back, he was always waiting for opportunities. Who? However, just as Rong Ci turned around, he was knocked unconscious with a stick. Before fainting, Rong Ci only saw a few figures vaguely, and then lost consciousness. Damn it, aren't you afraid of beating him, silly? Upholding the mentality of a public servant of the people, Officer Song was still a little merciful and couldn't help but observe 2 seconds of silence for Rong Ci, who was lying on the ground unconscious. Yu Lingfeng said calmly, "He's not that fragile." However, Rong Ci may not have thought that even a top agent like him would be knocked unconscious by someone with a stick, and even in his own home. "I thought the process would be very difficult. The master is worthy of being the master. He can solve the problem with just one stick." 11 Ju usually flatters Yu Lingfeng. "Carry it away." Yu Lingfeng slowly took off his gloves and said to 11 Ju. "Oh." 11 Ju responded silently, knowing that his master was taking him to do hard work. "But does this plan have a high success rate? Doesn't it mean that the witch has goo worms in her hands? If she lets a few worms come over, it won't be fun." Police Officer Song said. The images of those ghastly and creepy worms had already begun to appear in his mind. They were really terrifying. "It's inevitable to see insects. Why, are you afraid?" Yu Lingfeng snorted softly and looked at Officer Song, who had a frightened expression on his side, and said, "That insect is so scary, it's human nature to be afraid." Officer Song continued, "I'm not one of you. One has superpowers and the other is a robot. I'm just a mortal body. If you don't mind, I can help you renovate it." Yu Lingfeng deliberately teased Officer Song. Officer Song glanced at 11 Ju and waved his hand. Yes, I don't want to call you master, master. He still needs to have human dignity." Zihu, who was called, glanced at Officer Song in confusion, and snorted angrily from his nose. Officer Song drove all the way, with Rong Ci behind him, towards an increasingly remote place. "What if he wakes up suddenly?" Officer Song said while looking back. "I moved my hands and feet a little bit, but it's not easy to wake up." Yu Lingfeng lowered his head while playing with his mobile phone and answered without raising his head. Officer Song glanced in the direction of Yu Lingfeng and joked, "Who are you talking to?" "Your little girlfriend." Yu Lingfeng ignored him. "By the way, that's Su Ji from before. I've come back. She said she went out to relax. Xia Ying said she didn't find anything unusual about her when she came back. After all, she has always been a person with abnormal behavior." Yu Lingfeng typed on the keyboard of his mobile phone, and then answered Officer Song. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 752. Chapter 752. He won't wake up for a while. Officer Song saw that Yu Lingfeng was engrossed in the conversation and had not paid much attention to him, so he curiously leaned over and glanced, and by chance he saw a colored pencil painting on the screen of Yu Lingfeng's mobile phone. Officer Song couldn't help but smiled. "Who is this painting?" Why is it so ugly? Yu Lingfeng's expression immediately turned cold, and he looked at Officer Song with a stern look. The smile on Officer Song's face gradually disappeared, and then he vaguely recognized the person in the painting. It seemed to be Yu Lingfeng, but wasn't this too abstract? Okay, okay, what, that, abstract painting style. Officer Song's strong desire to survive forced him to tell lies with his eyes open. Actually, if you look carefully, you can still see your charm. What nonsense are you talking about? I'm not that ugly. Yu Lingfeng suddenly said angrily, but the message he lowered his head and replied to Xia Ying was: "The painting is very good, I like it very much." Police Officer Song sneered, "What a coward. Why is Xia Ying suddenly so interested in painting? Didn't you tell her not to waste time in areas she is not good at? It would be great to have this time to write more songs." As Officer Song spoke, he turned on the car's music player and played Xia Ying's songs. Officer Song's music listening level has always been stuck in the 1980s and 1990s. He is a veteran who has never listened to pop music, and he never thought that one day he would become a die-hard fan of Xia Ying, the kind who buys every album and collects it home. But of course he didn't tell Yu Lingfeng about his habit, fearing that Yu Lingfeng would beat him if he thought wrong. "It's not like I haven't said it before." Yu Lingfeng touched his nose and his voice weakened. Only 11 Jews baby behind him knew it, but he didn't say anything. How could the master dare to be so straightforward? He just said, "When are you going to write a song?" No one could understand the meaning of such euphemistic words. Ever since Xia Ying was ridiculed for her painting skills last time, she seemed to be in a daze. She had to draw every day, and most of the pictures she drew were Yu Lingfeng. Whenever Xia Ying showed the finished product to Yu Lingfeng kept saying that she liked it and that the painting was good. Then Xia Ying's creative enthusiasm was out of control. Whenever she had time, she would "I need to draw a few." Ziyu felt that it was a good thing that Xia Ying didn't draw him. Their robots were so upright and lying would not be a good idea. Moreover, he is not good at lying, and Xia Ying can easily find out. After arriving at the destination, 11 Ju carried Rong Si down. This is an abandoned cave. Officer Song accidentally discovered it during one of his missions, and then he wanted to bring Rong Si here so that he would not be easily discovered. "Master, do you want to be or something?" 11 Ju put Rong Si down and asked Yu Lingfeng how to do it. "No, he won't wake up." "What did you do to him?" Officer Song was shocked when he heard Yu Lingfeng's words. "What does can't wake up mean?" "I just got some special medicine from Chu Shengming. He is now in a coma, similar to the hibernation of animals, and it is not easy to wake up." "Then how will he wake up?" Police Officer Song suddenly became curious. "Is it so magical? How can an animal wake up from hibernation? This is how it can wake up." Yu Lingfeng said as he moved Rong Si's position so that he could lie in a more comfortable place. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 753. Chapter 753, Scared the Baby to Death. There won't be any snakes here, right? 11 Ju looked at the naturally formed cave, crossed his arms and said, 99% probability. Officer Song deliberately frightened 11 Ju, maybe there are several nests of big snakes living in there. Police Officer Song said while making gestures. Ziyu was so frightened that he shuddered a few times and silently approached Yu Lingfeng. "What kind of snake are you afraid of?" Yu Lingfeng glanced at 11 Ju. "It just feels scary." Ziyu said honestly, although logically speaking, he had nothing to be afraid of, but fear was not something that was easy to grasp. "Yes, what are you afraid of? You still have to guard him here." As soon as Officer Song said these words, 11 Ju's legs immediately went weak. 11 Ju quickly looked at Yu Lingfeng. Am I alone, master? It's not impossible if you want a few snakes to accompany you. Police Officer Song continued. 11 Ju was about to cry. Perhaps Officer Song felt happy to scare 11 Ju, so he continued, there may be some kind of brain rot here, de 11 Ju. Police Officer Song became happier and happier as he talked. 11 Ju's face became darker and darker, as if he was going to cry in the next second. Don't scare him. Yu Lingfeng glanced at 11 Ju's face and said, he can't stand the stimulation, and his brain will short-circuit. Huh, is it so fun? Officer Song smiled and poked 11 Ju on the head. Only then did 11 Ju realize that he was being played by Officer Song. His face quickly drooped and he said angrily, Officer Song, why are you acting like a child? Ziyu held his frightened chest. He had really scared the baby to death just now. Ha ha ha, who knew you were so easy to deceive? After arranging the resignation, Yu Lingfeng called Xia Ying. You think of a way to let Su Ji know the news that Rong Ci has disappeared. Okay, no problem, leave it to me. After Xia Ying hung up the phone, she also put down her paintbrush and looked in the direction of Su Ji's bed. When Su Ji was in the dormitory, she liked to close herself behind the bed curtains and isolate herself from everything around her. No one knows what Su Ji does in her small space every day. There were no classes in the afternoon, so Tanguo went to the library to study with her schoolbag on her back. Yezioksun was writing seriously opposite Xia Ying. Xia Ying had been drawing all afternoon. Sakura, have you finished drawing? Yezioksun saw Xia Ying packing up her paintbrushes, so she leaned over and asked. Yes, let me show you my painting. Xia Ying held up her painting to Yezioksun with great interest. Yu Lingfeng said that she painted very well. However, Yezioksun's face froze the moment he saw Xia Ying's painting. Is the picture you drew, old man Ding? The smile on Xia Ying's lips gradually disappeared. What kind of look is that? What I drew is obviously Yu Lingfeng. Oh, that's how it is. Yezioksun swallowed hard and observed 2 seconds of silence for Yu Lingfeng. It turns out that in Xia Ying's heart, Yu Lingfeng grew up like this. Does it look good? Xia Ying asked Yezioksun happily. Yezioksun smiled awkwardly, do you want me to tell the truth or a lie? Xia Ying curled her lips and said, just tell lies. This is the most beautiful painting I have ever seen. It is comparable to the hyperrealism of teacher Leng Jun. Yezioksun was so full of praise, but Xia Ying stuck out her tongue and said, oh, then I'll just take it as what you said is the truth. Yezioksun. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 754. Chapter 754 Rong Ci is missing. At night, Xia Ying estimated that the time was almost up, so she glanced in the direction of Su Ji's bed. Su Ji was currently in the bed covered with black curtains. She didn't know what she was doing, but Xia Ying guessed that she was not sleeping. Xia Ying suppressed the expression on her face, took out her mobile phone, and immediately started acting, oh my god, Rong Ci is missing. Yezioksun saw Xia Ying suddenly worrying and looked up at Xia Ying in confusion. Xia Ying's face was full of panic. After putting down her phone, she opened her eyes wide and stared at Yezioksun. Yezioksun was also successfully deceived by Xia Ying. What's wrong? I don't know, Xia Ying continued. Rong Ci was supposed to go to the United States, but Jun Chennai suddenly couldn't contact him. The servant at home said that Rong Ci had already left, and after checking the records, he found that Rong Ci had left. Rong Ci didn't get on the plane at all. Moreover, Rong Ci's phone is turned off and he can't be contacted. Is there something else going on? Yezioksun felt that it was impossible for a top agent like Rong Ci to be in danger so easily, and Rong Si didn't have any enemies. If it was an ordinary kidnapping, according to Rong Si's ability, he should be able to withstand it. Have no idea. Xia Ying sighed. Jun Chenai said that Rong Si told him some time ago that he felt someone was following him, and now, Rong Si disappeared. I was wondering if it was the person who dealt with Jun Chenai. The crowd captured Rong Si. Hearing what Xia Ying said, Ye Xiaoxun felt anxious and couldn't help but sweat for Rong Si. Who on earth wants to deal with Rong Si and Jun Chenai? Ye Xiaoxun closed the computer and didn't have the time to type and think about the plot. Although she didn't know Rong Si very well, Rong Si was Xia Ying's friend, and she and Rong Si were also friends. So now that something happened to Rong Si, Ye Xiaoxun couldn't help but worry about him. That group of people dared to touch even members of the Jun family. I wonder if they might do something even more terrifying. I don't know. Yu Lingfeng and Officer Song are already looking for him, but whether he can be found or not is another matter. Xia Ying lay back dejectedly and glanced sideways in Su Ji's direction. Although she couldn't see Su Ji's movements or expression, Xia Ying knew that she must have heard it. Because Xia Ying had clearly seen her bed curtain move just now, she probably couldn't help but wanted to ask something, but in the end she held back. In the middle of the night, Xia Ying stayed awake just because she wanted to spy on Su Ji's movements. Sure enough, Su Ji got up at about 2 o'clock in the morning, changed her clothes, and left in a hurry. Xia Ying leaned over slightly and glanced in the direction of the door. After confirming that Su Ji had gone away, Xia Ying sent a message to Yu Lingfeng. She set off. Yu Lingfeng also stayed awake on the other end. After receiving the text message, Yu Lingfeng quickly replied okay. It doesn't matter whether Yu Lingfeng and 11 Ju sleep or not. Unfortunately for Officer Song, in the past few days, from Sumo's murder to now, he has not had a good night's sleep. Since he didn't know when the witch would act, Officer Song forced himself to keep his eyes wide open and couldn't close them. He followed Yu Lingfeng, 11 Ju, and the others to survive until now. The witch is coming, Yu Lingfeng said, and then stood up. Officer Song's eyelids were getting heavier and heavier, and when he was about to close them, Yu Lingfeng said something like this, which woke him up. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 755. Chapter 755, Performing a Mission or Falling in Love. My God, she's finally here. Officer Song stood up, stretched, rubbed his sleepy eyes, and tried to wake himself up. Ahis, what are you doing? Officer Song suddenly screamed and jumped to the side, looking at Yu Lingfeng anxiously like a frightened cat. Yu Lingfeng slowly put away his needle, raised his eyes and glanced at the irritable Officer Song. The poison on the witch is very dangerous. If you are bitten, I can't save you. This is Chu Shenming's special effect needle. Once bitten, it can protect you for half an hour. Officer Song was overjoyed when he heard the previous sentence. After hearing the last sentence, the smile that had just brewed immediately cooled down. What the hell? Just extend your life for half an hour. And that half hour must be hard to pass, right? It's better to give it a good time, really. Yu Lingfeng pinched his eyebrows, showing a sense of helplessness on his face. I'm leaving you half an hour for me to save you. Can you use your brain? Officer Song patted his head. After hearing this, he felt like he was mentally retarded just now. I haven't slept much during this period. It's good that I can still stand here and talk and carry out the task. My brain has been damaged for a long time. When this task is over, I have to apply for a vacation from the boss. I can't play anymore. Dead. Officer Song yawned after finishing speaking. Master, how long will it take for the witch to find this place? Zihu looked at the entrance of the cave for a while, then came in and asked Yu Lingfeng how to do it. She has a goo insect. Although I don't know how powerful it is, it shouldn't take long. Yu Lingfeng said. Then do we need to prepare anything? Officer Song asked, for example, should we hide later or attack directly? Yu Lingfeng glanced at Officer Song. According to my guess, there is a 99% chance that she let the goo insects in first. She was not so hasty when people came in directly. No wonder you want to give me an injection. Officer Song thought of the poisonous insects, and thought of the pictures of the poisonous insects he had found last time, and couldn't help but shudder. However, to their surprise, it was already dark and the witch had no intention of coming. Officer Song had fallen asleep with his eyes closed because he couldn't bear the sleepiness. 11 Ju turned his head and looked at Yu Lingfeng. Master, is the witch planning to come? Yu Lingfeng's face was sullen, and he couldn't explain clearly. Everything was clearly in his plan. Why didn't she show up yet? Su Ji did not come to them directly as Yu Lingfeng thought, but went to find another person. The man's back was turned to Su Ji, and he was dressed in black, as if he blended into the dark night. Can't see his face, can't see his expression. You haven't come to see me for a long time. Why, what happened this time? Although his words were teasing, his tone was unusually cold and devoid of any emotional warmth. Where did you take wrong Ci? Su Ji gritted his teeth, stared at the figure, and asked in a cold voice. Wrong Ci? Why this wrong Ci again? Are you here to perform a mission, or are you here to fall in love? Contemptuous tone, full of disdain. Let me ask you one last time, where is wrong Ci? Su Ji's face became more and more ugly, and his drooping hands clenched into fists, making a clanking sound. We didn't touch him at all. If not you, who else could it be? Su Ji's tone was higher. She had already concluded that they were the ones who did it, so his denial at this moment was just denial in Su Ji's heart. Also, I'm writing. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 756. Chapter 756 Wrong Ci is too fascinating. I said I didn't move, I didn't move. Originally, I wanted to kill him last time, but the superiors asked us to keep him. Otherwise, do you think you can hide in that little shabby house of yours? Humph, that's ridiculous. Su Ji felt a chill in her heart. It turned out that that day she knew that those people in the organization were going to attack Rong Ci. So she kidnapped Rong Ci halfway that day and took him to a cabin to hide from the limelight. But what she didn't understand was that just that time, the shadow hunters in the organization had no intention of taking action against Rong Ci again in the future. She thought they were waiting for an opportunity, but this time, she insisted that it was them. Because besides them, she hadn't thought of anyone who would do such a thing. Who would want to kidnap Rong Ci? However, what I want to know now is, what did you do to make the superiors give up the idea of killing Rong Ci? The man's gloomy eyes stared at Su Ji blankly. In their view, Rong Ci is the biggest stumbling block on Su Ji's road to success. First, Rong Ci is currently the only person who knows that Su Ji is a witch, and keeping him is a threat. Second, Su Ji likes Rong Ci so much that all of them can see it. Last time they wanted to kill Rong Ci, she refused 10,000 times and even came out so irrationally to kidnap Rong Ci. Such behavior could easily make people suspicious and expose her identity. But she still did it because she couldn't bear to die. Su Ji has been joining the Shadow Hunters for a long time, and they have trained with Su Ji and performed many missions together. But they all knew how cold and decisive she was, even a cold-blooded person. The nearly 10 years of getting along did not allow them to develop any kind of allyship with Su Ji, an alternative. However, Rong Ci was just a person who had crossed paths with Su Ji when she was a child, but she remembered it and has not forgotten it even now. They are now even beginning to worry that Suji will one day choose to betray their organization because of Rong Ci. After all, Rong Ci was their opponent and they had to guard against him. It's just that what the shadow hunters like them can think of, the higher UPS should also be able to think of. But why should they stop their plans and actions to assassinate Rong Ci? The superiors even issued orders that no one should touch Rong Ci. This made them unable to think clearly. The only thing they doubted was Suji. Did she do something to make her superiors protect Rong Ci, who should have died in this way? Your superiors, are you not ready to take action against Rong Ci? Unexpectedly, Suji only realized now that the string that had been so tight was finally loosened at this moment. Why, don't tell me that this matter has nothing to do with you. The man sneered a few times. It has nothing to do with me in the first place. If I knew about this matter, why would I come to you to ask for forgiveness? Suji's words made him wake up. So who is the person who robbed Rong Kai? Who is Rong Ci? He is obviously from the enemy, why should the superiors favor him? Rong Ci is a person who has too many mysteries. I won't talk to you anymore, I'm leaving. Suji turned around and disappeared as soon as he finished speaking. Since he was not a shadow hunter, they could not catch him. The superiors are not prepared to deal with Rong, so who else is there? Suji frowned. After some brainstorming in his mind, he was suddenly startled and opened his eyes wide as he thought of something. Yu Lingfeng, and Officer Song. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 757. Chapter 757 The Gaze from Hell. The sky was getting brighter. Yu Lingfeng looked at Officer Song and 11 Jew who were sleeping soundly around him. He stood up and walked to Rong Ci, who was still lying on the ground unconscious. He looked down at he. Rong Ci doesn't have any intuition now, as if he is asleep, maybe, or still dreaming. Yu Lingfeng was still thinking about something when suddenly his body trembled and he felt that the rustling sound was getting louder and louder, getting closer and closer to them. Yu Lingfeng quickly leaned down and shook Officer Song and 11 Jew awake. Don't sleep, the witch is coming. Hearing the word witch, Officer Song immediately stood up and looked around anxiously. Where? Where is the witch? 11 Jew rubbed his sleepy eyes and gradually began to revive his system. Here, do you see it, the legendary goo insect? Yu Lingfeng stretched out a long, white finger and pointed at the 3 large green flesh worms crawling at the entrance of the cave. The insect's body was green and shiny, and its eyes were ghastly and extremely wide. It stared at everyone, making people's hairs stand on end and their hairs trembled. Mom! Officer Song looked in the direction of Yu Lingfeng's finger, and immediately felt his stomach churn. It's really, really disgusting. Officer Song shouted, then subconsciously hid behind Yu Lingfeng, tremblingly grabbing Yu Lingfeng's shoulders and sighing, that bug is so big, my god. It was as big as a girl's fist, and those eyes were simply staring from hell. Being stared at by them was enough to frighten them, and one bite sent them straight to the sky, and they died tragically. Yu Lingfeng turned his head and signaled to 11 Jew. 11 Jew nodded understandingly, then took out the container that had been prepared and walked towards the 3 goo insects. The goo worm felt 11 Jew's approach and crawled towards 11 Jew head on. They are never afraid of humans. For them, humans are their best food. Zihu opened the lid of the container. Fortunately, he had prepared it in advance. He thought that the witch's poisonous insects might be numerous and large, so the container he prepared was large enough. When the goo insects were approaching 11 Jew, they immediately quickened their pace and pounced towards 11 Jew. They stretched out their sharp fangs and took a big bite out of 11 Jew's body. However, to their surprise, 11 Jew did not show any pain, and he did not even feel the normal feeling of being bitten. The place where he was bitten didn't appear as it should. 11 Jew looked as if nothing had happened, then grabbed their slimy bodies, put them into the container, and closed the lid. After taking care of everything, he strolled towards Yu Lingfeng and the others. Officer Song was dumbfounded the whole time. 11 Jew, how is he, not okay at all? Police Officer Song had just seen the group of poisonous insects pounce on 11 Jew, each of them took a big bite, and 11 Jew still had marks on his body. Why? Why is the mark getting lighter and lighter? Why? Actually disappeared. Oh my god, it's amazing. Police Officer Song was shocked again. Yu Lingfeng looked calm and composed, took the container that 11 Jew handed him, and then said to Officer Song, 11 Jew is my most successful work after all, and his ability far exceeds your imagination. Officer Song calmed down his shocked jaw. When 11 Jew came closer, he found that the place where he was originally bitten had healed without leaving any traces. Brother you are really, much more powerful than I thought. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 758. Chapter 758 Mutated Insects. Master, you, look quickly. 11 Jew tremblingly stretched out his finger and pointed at the door. Due to nervousness and fear, his tongue could no longer be straightened and he was trembling when he spoke. Yu Lingfeng was still chatting with Officer Song at this moment. When he heard 11 Jew's words, he immediately raised his head and looked at the door. It was a bug, as big as a human forearm. It was covered in wet and sticky fluid, and left a trail of foul-smelling and disgusting sticky liquid wherever it went. Police Officer Song couldn't help but jump to his feet, and he was so frightened that his hair trembled. In all his life, he has never seen such a big bug. Of course, I have never seen such disgusting bugs. Upon closer inspection, Officer Song discovered that this disgusting bed bug actually had 3 eyes. There is also a small eye with 3 eyes on the forehead, staring at him motionlessly, and it seems to be crawling towards him. Master, this is a mutated insect. Zihu's stomach was filled with soreness after seeing it. How on earth could a girl like a witch be able to raise such disgusting worms? She really isn't picky at all. Perhaps. Yu Lingfeng frowned and looked at the insect that seemed to be moving slowly, but was actually secretly observing the 3 of them. Yu Lingfeng could see that this insect was different from the previous 3. Not only in terms of size, but also in terms of toxicity, or intelligence, this bug is much stronger. Yu Lingfeng also noticed that this goo seemed to be targeting Officer Song, and kept his eyes fixed on Officer Song. It could actually tell that among the 3 of them, Officer Song was the only human being it could kill. Officer Song was staring at the bug so much that his scalp was numb, and the corpses with tragic deaths immediately appeared in his mind. Thinking of this, Officer Song silently walked behind Yu Lingfeng and swallowed. It seems like it's coming to bite me. Officer Song whispered to Yu Lingfeng. That's right. Yu Lingfeng's affirmation made Officer Song even more unsure. Yu Lingfeng heard the sound of Officer Song drawing his gun behind him. Yu Lingfeng stretched out his hand to stop it. This thing is not easy to fight. It looks slow, but in fact it is very powerful. If you anger it, it will immediately I'll pounce on you and bite you. After hearing this, Officer Song quietly retracted his gun. Yu Lingfeng glanced at 11 Jew. 11 Jew was startled by the call, but he still went forward. Although 11 Jew is not as misophobic as Yu Lingfeng, he doesn't want to catch such disgusting bugs. The insect saw 11 Jew walking towards him, and fixed his eyes on 11 Jew. When 11 Jew was half a meter away from it, he suddenly opened his mouth and spat a mouthful of sticky saliva on 11 Jew's chest. Zihu's expression of disgust turned ferocious. Oh my god, it stinks and is disgusting. 11 Jew was just about to take out a tissue and wipe it clean, but found that the piece of clothing that was spit on was immediately corroded. Not only that, 11 Ju suddenly felt a tingling sensation coming from his skin. Zihu frowned and covered his chest. Seeing this, Yu Lingfeng quickly stepped forward, lowered his head and glanced at Zihu's wound. That guy's saliva actually has the ability to corrode. Yu Lingfeng glared at the disgusting insect. Take this. Yu Lingfeng gave 11 Ju a pill, which he had originally taken from Chu Shengming and prepared for Officer Song. Unexpectedly, 11 Ju was also injured by the insect. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 759. Chapter 759 Crushed to death with bare hands. However, just as Yu Lingfeng and 11 Ju were talking, the insect suddenly accelerated its speed, like a cheetah, and ran towards Officer Song fiercely, using a row of tiny feet hidden under its body. As soon as he exerted his strength, he was ready to jump up and bite Officer Song. At that moment, Officer Song's legs began to feel numb due to fear and panic, and he subconsciously wanted to hide, but the insect was quicker than Officer Song's instinctive reaction. While in mid-air, a pair of small wings stretched out from nowhere, turned and pointed in the direction of Officer Song. Ah dash! Police Officer Song closed his eyes suddenly and screamed. However, the second the goo insect came into contact with Officer Song, it was already caught by Yu Lingfeng. Officer Song reacted for a while and found that there was no pain in his body that he should have felt. Then he gradually opened his eyes and saw Yu Lingfeng in front of him with a face full of disgust, holding the bug in his hand. Police Officer Song quickly ran away. Darling, this bug was actually targeting him. But Yu Lingfeng didn't hold the bug for long, because the surface of the bug's body was too slimy for Yu Lingfeng to hold, so it twisted around and fell to the ground again, and then violently chased Officer Song. Yu Lingfeng followed the insect with a straight face. Zihu, protect Officer Song. Yu Lingfeng said to 11 Ju. Zihu nodded, said hello, and then continued to protect Officer Song. Police Officer Song is not like Yu Lingfeng and 11 Ju, he is just an ordinary human being. This bug is obviously more toxic than the previous ones. The drugs Chu Shengming developed for the previous bugs may not have any effect on it. In other words, if Officer Song is bitten by it, he will be completely finished. Oh my god, has this insect become a spirit? Police Officer Song complained as he ran, why are you just chasing him? Isn't this too bullying and afraid of the strong? Yu Lingfeng saw that this roundabout method was useless. Since he couldn't catch the bug, and it would threaten Officer Song's life anytime and anywhere, Yu Lingfeng simply refused to do anything and prepared to kill the bug. Yu Lingfeng rushed over and grabbed the bug directly. The bug was about to use a move to escape, but the next second, Yu Lingfeng held it with both hands, then frowned and looked away. Look at that disgusting scene and try your best. Vomit. Vomit. 11 Ju and Officer Song watched on the sidelines and vomited. Yu Lingfeng's face darkened, and he walked to a pool of water at the cave entrance and silently washed the disgusting green mucus on his hands. This is the most disgusting thing he has ever touched in his life. Officer Song was so moved that he almost cried. Yu Lingfeng, a germaphobe, actually squeezed to death with his bare hands the insect that made people unable to eat and even vomited out the overnight meal for him. Master, you are so generous. 11 Ju was also moved by Yu Lingfeng's spirit of doing everything possible for his friends. As a robot, he really couldn't do anything. Yu Lingfeng crushed it when he said it would. Officer Song said with emotion to Yu Lingfeng's back, who was still washing his hands, Brother Yu are so touching to me. I will go through fire and water for you in the future. Officer Song's face was filled with indignation, as if he had already made plans to fight for Yu Lingfeng in the next second. I just think that if it really bites you, the nausea will be even greater, so it's better to deal with it now. Yu Lingfeng's cold voice came faintly. Also, writing. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 760. Chapter 760. Choose two answers from three questions. Police Officer Song. Can't this guy cooperate with him and show his brotherly love? Ja. Sure, this is very bossy. You killed my three eyes. At this time, a clear female voice came from the entrance of the cave, and everyone turned around to look. Suji was dressed in a red dress, with long, waist-length jet black hair hanging freely in the wind, which added a bit of agility to Suji's already refined temperament. Suji stared blankly with a pair of clear and bright eyes. Everyone's eyes were filled with anger and hatred. Suji's eyes flickered, and he looked at a pool of green mucus on the ground and a body that was so blurry that he could not recognize it. Yu Lingfeng washed her hands quietly, shook them calmly, and looked in Suji's direction calmly. Suji also looked at Yu Lingfeng, and his eyes fell on Yu Lingfeng's shirt, which was corroded by the mucus of the three-eyed goo insect. The mucus is very corrosive, and a piece of Yu Lingfeng's top was severely corroded, revealing the strong body underneath. However, the white body that was exposed did not have any scars. Suji was stunned and looked at 11 Ju aside. His skin was corroded, but what was that dark thing exposed? More like a machine. Suji was so surprised that his heartbeat started to beat wildly. Who are these people? Her three previous goo insects that had killed countless people were easily captured by them, and Sanyan, her most powerful goo insect, was crushed to death by Yu Lingfeng, who had just washed his hands. With bare hands, crushed to death? And he was not corroded by the mucus. This is not scientific at all, it is simply impossible. Which, raise your hands. At this time, Officer Song pulled out his gun and pointed it at Suji. Police Officer Song walked towards Suji step by step with a straight face. Song Yang, don't take action yet. Yu Lingfeng stopped Officer Song. Officer Song was puzzled and turned around to look at Yu Lingfeng. How long will it take if we don't arrest her now? I have a few more questions to ask her. Yu Lingfeng said and walked towards Suji. Suji ignored Yu Lingfeng and Officer Song at all, but asked Yu Lingfeng coldly, where is Rong Ci? It's easy to know where Rong Ci is. Just answer a few questions and I'll hand him over to you. Yu Lingfeng lowered his eyes and looked at Suji expressionlessly. Suji took a deep breath and snorted coldly from his nose. She probably knew what question Yu Lingfeng wanted to ask, but she would definitely not betray the organization. First, why did you and Su Mo deal with Xia Ying and Jun Chenai? Was it also done by someone from your organization? Second, what is your purpose? Third, who is the boss behind your organization? Yu Lingfeng asked 3 questions in succession. After Suji heard these questions, although he was not surprised, his face became darker and darker, and he kept biting his lips to keep quiet. There are 3 questions, you just need to choose 2 answers. Yu Lingfeng continued, as long as you answer truthfully, I will naturally hand over Rong Ci to you, and I will not move today. Otherwise, I will not only send you to the police station, but I may also do something to Rong Ci. What? This is a naked threat from Yu Lingfeng. Yu Lingfeng originally didn't like threatening others, which seems to be a despicable method, but time is running out now. If the mastermind behind the scenes is not caught quickly, Xia Ying's danger will become more and more serious. Yu Lingfeng couldn't guarantee that he would show up to protect her at the right time every time. Cutting off the source was the most effective method. End of this chapter.